Hey there, boot campers. We've got our week number 2 coming up in our medicinal herbs class. And we're talking about this week gathering your herbs. Um, Now, of course, if you're not interested in growing herbs at all and you don't have any out in your gardens or containers or pots or any of that, then what you're going to do to get your herbs medicinally is you're either going to buy them at a farmer's market from someone who's grown them. You can find them in bunches and bundles and that kind of thing. At some grocery stores, you can buy fresh bundles, just depending on what you're looking for, or you can order them online from places that sell them dried and in bulk. So I'll be posting a link to a couple of places that you can do that online. That'll be posted into our group, so you can check those out. But if you do have herbs that you're planning on using and stuff that you're going to grow and you're going to harvest, this is how it's going to be done. So first I'm going to take this little red bow off right here. I bought this rosemary at Christmas time. It was shaped in a cute little Christmas tree at that time. So rosemary is going to be our example because it's what I have growing in shrubs right now. To harvest fresh herbs, you're going to need scissors, or you're going to need some hand clippers, gardening hand clippers, something along those lines to cut the stems. Now, when you harvest herbs, cut the stems. Don't just pick off the leaves, because when you do that, you weaken the plant, because the plant has all this stem growth to support, but no leaves with which to do photosynthesis, so you're going to weaken your plant. So you want to clip the stems. And then also what happens when you do that is that the little stems that are branching out there, they're going to just be tiny at this point. That's going to stimulate those to grow faster. And then you'll come back and harvest again, and you'll clip those back, and then again the process will keep going on. It'll keep branching and branching and branching, and then you're going to have this nice full bush, whether it be rosemary or oregano or basil. It seems to be that basil is the one that most everyone is hesitant to cut the stem. You just pull off the big leaves, and that's just a huge mistake. You want to cut those stems. So now, if you're going to use it fresh, then pretty much this is all you have to do. Chop it up into smaller pieces if you're cooking with it. Rosemary in particular, normally people just put the sprigs in the pot and then pull the sprigs out when they're, when the food is done. But if you wanted the leaves, you just take like this and pull down. And then you have an empty stem, and you have all the little pieces right there. Oh, and it smells so good in here. I wish you could smell it. Now, you can do that too once they're dried. Once the stems are dried, you strip the leaves off that easy too. And if you're using something tiny like thyme, I recommend drying them before you try to strip them off the stems, because thyme leaves are so teeny that they just stick all over your fingers and stuff like that. So if you're going to use thyme fresh, just use it in big pieces. If you're going to use it, if you want it, in little pieces, you want to put it in a blend or something along those lines, then you're going to want to dry it and then strip it off. Now, to dry it, again, this is not a complicated process. You're going to take the stems that you cut, you got your little bundle going on, take a rubber band and wrap the ends up, just like that. Now what's going to happen is, as this dries, the plant matter will shrink because the moisture leaves, and the rubber band will just tighten as it shrinks, so it's going to keep it together. If you were to use string, as it dried and got smaller, then your bundle would become loose and fall apart. So you want to go with rubber bands, and then just take this and clip it somewhere. I have a little clothesline set up at our first house that I started doing this at. It was above the fridge, up there above it. I had to get a step stool. It was no big deal. Hung them up there. Within a week, they're dry. At our current place, it's kind of like a clothesline, just string on some shelves in my kitchen, underneath, and then I just hang the little bundles up there. But just find you a spot for the little bundle to dry out of the way, and you don't want it in the direct light. Once you cut the herbs, the direct sunlight is not your friend. So you want to keep your herbs, if you're putting them in jars after they're dry or whatever, you want to keep them in the pantry, keep them in a cabinet, keep them out of the direct light. And I know it's real pretty to look at, rows of lovely jars with all their herbs in it, and it's really pretty to look at. But your herbs are going to degrade really fast if you're displaying them that way. Now, if you want to have some that is just for looks, go right ahead. But the stuff you use in your medicinal concoctions or in your kitchen, you want to keep those put away in the dark. So there's that. So you're going to dry these bundles. Now these are stems. This is what you would do, any kind of flowering bundles, vegetation that you're using on top. This is what you do. Roots and bark are a little bit different. Here I have an example. This is a dandelion that I just popped right out of the ground. This is what it looks like. Look at this huge root. It's beautiful. Unless you're trying to get dandelions out of your yard, and this is terrible because this root broke, which means it's going to put up dandelions right in the exact same spot, which is fantastic for me. It makes me happy. And so this dandelion is the first one, early spring, very early spring. Really, we're still in winter, technically. And so it's got some dead plant matter. So all you do is you just pull all that off. Just pull that off. And you take that dead plant matter and you go put it in your compost pile. Or just throw it right back in the garden bed. Because there's actually, in that dead plant stuff, dandelions are very, very, very dense in nutrients, trace minerals, and things like that. They pull that long taproot right here. It's way down under the ground in there, and it's pulling up minerals from the deep parts of the soil that most plants never get to. And it pulls them up out into the leaves, and then those decompose on top of the soil and give you all those nutrients on top of the soil now that the rest of the plants can use. So dandelions really are our friends in the garden, not to mention the fact that they are so dense in nutrients for us, and then also are a very powerful medicinal herb. So love my dandelions. So they're cleaned out all the dead plant matter. Now this is one herb, if you're doing roots of any kind, this is one that when you harvest it, you are going to wash it. It's full of dirt. I'm going to scrub all that clean, and then while it's fresh, I'm going to chop this root up into pieces. And the reason you want to do that when it's fresh is because once it dries, it's kind of like leather. It is dense and difficult to cut, and you wind up, I would cut it with shears and pieces would pop off, or the knife would slide while I was trying to cut it, and I have sharp knives. And so it's just much easier if you do it when it's fresh. So you're going to chop that up fresh. Again, all this dirt right up in here will have been washed out. And so then I'm going to lay this dandelion, all its pieces. I'm not going to necessarily chop the greens up because when you're making tinctures or stuff with the dandelions, you don't really have to chop them up smaller, just big enough to fit in the jar. And so then if you've got like a cooling rack for cookies or something along those lines where there's going to be plenty of airflow and the water can drip down after you've washed them, just put them on those racks over your sink and just let them drip dry. And I would usually do this in the late afternoon, and or if you did it mid-morning, which is technically the best time to do it. Mid-morning is the best time to harvest herbs because the essential oils are so high concentration. You're going to then take those once they've been there. If you did it mid-morning, by the time morning came again, they would be dry enough to put into your tinctures. Now, tincture, of course, is alcohol or vinegar. That's in your workbook. And those are your medicinal applications of it. And if you're going to dry it for a tea, you would just simply cut the greens and bundle them just like anything else and let that dry, and then that would be your tea. So there's your dandelion. That's how you handle a root. Now dandelions also have blossoms, which are medicinal. And they're going to be my example that if you're harvesting flower tops, calendula is one that is fantastic for skin. And you're going to use, it has a little orange flower about this big. You're going to use those flower tops. That's the part you want that has all of the resin in it that is good for your skin. So you're going to pinch off those flower tops, or you're going to cut them with your scissors. And you're going to need a tray of some sort or a screen that air can flow through. And you're going to dry those in a single layer. So you're going to take the little flowers. It's kind of awkward because they don't stay put, and I'm trying to show you. And you're going to put them in a single layer in this tray and let it dry. And you're going to need to flip these over once or twice a day so that the air circulates over them and they don't mold before they get dry. And if you have a screen, that works even better. You can make your own. All you need is just a frame. You can use, I've seen, Pinterest, you gotta love Pinterest. Picture frames, that you get at the Dollar Tree, they're wooden, and someone then took the screen that you can get the rolls at your hardware store or whatever, and put the screen on the back of the picture frame, and then had little eyelets where it would hang. So those screens it's an easy way to get them. Or if you happen to have some old window screens, you can recycle that way. So you just need some way for the blossoms to dry with plenty of air to get around them. Blossoms are also things that are good candidates for drying in the oven. If you're going to dry your herbs, you're going to set the oven at the lowest temperature, and you need to prop it open so that the moisture can get out, and that will help speed along the drying process. You want low heat on the oven, lowest heat you can get, and again, out of direct sun. You don't want to set any of these things in the direct sun as they're drying, because it's going to cause them to break down, the herb qualities to break down too fast, and you don't want to do that. Okay, any of your medicinal herbs that are along the lines of fruit, like lemon and citrus, they have a lot of medicinal aspects. You can also use those if you're wanting to make your own herbal cleaners. A lot of times you'll use lemon peel or orange peel, and you can just peel the fruit and then dry the fruit skins. And do that again in the dehydrator, in the oven, or just set them out on a tray, same way you did the blossoms, and let those dry. Seed heads, that's a little bit different. You're going to let those seeds come to a head in the garden. And right now I don't have any fresh ones to show you, but I will show you stuff that I had, or my other herb grower friend had. This is mullein. And mullein puts out, it's this huge green plant. It's real pretty. It's got real velvety leaves. It's a cousin of lamb's ear. So if you know what lamb's ear looks like on the leaves, mullein is the same way. Mullein puts out these really, really tall, I'm talking as tall as I am, seed spikes. And it'll have yellow blossoms all down it. The yellow blossoms is what you would harvest to make mullein oil with for ears and stuff like that. You would make an infused oil with those blossoms. That would fall under the flowers, harvesting the flowers. So you'd kind of do that the same way. The mullein flowers are very delicate and dainty, and it only takes probably a few hours for those to start to dry. And you can put those in. But now the seed heads, the herbs qualities are in the flower, not the seeds. But the seed head, then we cut, and after it's dried, and we put it in baggies, something that'll catch all because this is not one big seed. This is tons of tiny little pods that have hundreds of little black seeds in each little pod. So those seed heads, you're going to let them dry on the stalk, and then you're going to cut them and save them that way. And you're going to want to either put those into a jar, big jar, or a large bag that will keep the seeds, because once they dry, they're going to start to fall apart. And but you want to harvest seeds when they're dry. So it's one of those things of you have to kind of keep watching it in the garden, and as it gets to that point where it's dry but they're still together, that's when you want to harvest it. And so you put those then into your plastic bag or into your milk jug, or whatever container you've saved to keep your seeds in, and that's when it goes to it. And then you can store your seeds. One second. Sorry. I had the jar underneath the computer. You can store your seeds once they're dry and you've separated them off. This is cumin. It looks a lot like fennel when it's in seed form. You just store those then in mason jars once they're good and dry. Mason jars are your friend when it comes to herbal concoctions of all types and sorts. And so there's that. And you can either just use these in your cooking, and you're going to get the medicinal aspects from them that way, or you can crush them and put them into the oils or the vinegars, and it will extract it. And what parts of the plant you use is going to be determined by what plant it is that you're using. And as you do your research, as we've talked about, you decide where you want to start and how you want to start on what aspects of your health you want to address first. As you then research the herbs that you're going to use for that, it will, in your reading and stuff, it should tell you which part of the plant you're going to use. And I'm going to be posting a picture or a link to the book that I use for my medicinal herbs. It's the one I got started with. And so far I haven't found one that's better. And so I'll be posting that link in our group, and y'all can check that out too. So those are seeds. And that would be the last thing. And once herbs are dried properly, here's an example of some roselle that I dried in the summer. And once they're dried and stored, they're good for about 6 months. And so the thing of it is that if you're using them for medicinal, a tincture, once it's prepared and everything's been dried, you know, the herbs have been done, the tincture's been made, and now it's been drained, and you've just got what's left, the tincture that's left. This is an example. There's no herbs left in it. I've strained it. This one was for tummy ease. Had things like mint and thyme and lemon balm in it. This will keep till Jesus comes back. I mean, it's going to keep until you've used it all. The herbs don't keep that long. So that's the beauty of being able to prepare tinctures and stuff, is that one season's harvest can last you for a very long time, depending on how much you've harvested and how much you prepared. So that's why you want to make the preparations to just using the herbs fresh. In teas and stuff. Teas are fantastic, but come the middle of winter, you might not have that option because nothing's growing in the garden. So if you've had major preparations in the summers, spring, summer, and fall, when stuff's growing well, then you can have your tinctures all year long, and it won't matter what's going on outside in the gardens. And then that also is what allows you to order your stuff online if you're not growing your stuff, again, which is fine. You can use medicinal herbs. I've been using medicinal herbs since my 22-year-old, she was 3, is when I first got started. I didn't start growing herbs until she was about 12 or 13 because it didn't have much in the way of sunlight. I didn't understand how to grow them. I thought there was this mystical process that got it from my garden, from this rosemary plant here to what you get off the shelf, that's made by, marketed by McCormick. So there was some big process. Now I found that it's actually quite simple. So I didn't have the skill set yet, which to do it, but I still used herbs medicinally, and I would order them online, or I'd go to the health food store and buy them, and things like that. So to use herbs medicinally, you don't have to be a gardener. We're talking about how to harvest it from the plants and stuff, but you don't have to. Once you order it and it's dried, then you just jump right into making your tinctures, and that's something we're going to be looking at. That's next week's lesson, is all the different preparations. Herbal teas, herbal tinctures, ointments and salves and infused oils. There's just a myriad of things you can do with the herbs once you've got them in your hot little hands. So that's what we're going to talk about next week. And so this week I don't have the homework sheet in front of me. I'm out here in the greenhouse, and I didn't bring that one with me. So check your homework, see what it is that you're supposed to do and what you're supposed to post pictures of. And I will talk to y'all next week. And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to post them on the page or text me. Be happy to answer them. Thanks, guys.